I've never been the golden kid or the favorite in my family. I've always been the second best. Riley, the accountant, alone. In contrast, my brother Tyler has always been our parents' favorite. When we were youngsters, I received his hand-me-downs and Tyler got the newest bike. He would receive pricey game consoles on his birthday, whereas I would receive clothing or books. Mom and Dad went to all of Tyler's football games in high school, but they only made it to one of my argument competitions, which I won, incidentally. Even still, they spoke about how Tyler would have been proud for half of the time. The icing on the cake for a lifetime of partiality was Grandpa's will. I was given the humble two-bedroom house on the outskirts of the suburbs, while Tyler was given the expansive four-bedroom house in the pleasant part of town. Grandpa had been urged by Mom to leave Tyler the larger house. She was unaware that I had ever overheard her. She had begged, "Please, Dad. Tyler will eventually start a family. He requires the room. The smaller dwelling will be acceptable to Riley." None of this has caused me to grumble. Why would it matter? Tyler was the first in our family. It was simply the way it was. Therefore, I wasn't shocked when Tyler and his wife, Megan, abruptly cleared their throats to say that they had some very important news over our monthly family meal. "We've made the decision to sell the house," Tyler declared with a broad smile. My water almost swallowed me. "We have a fantastic opportunity to invest in," Megan went on, almost jumping in her chair. "We're getting in on the ground floor of Tyler's friend Jason's amazing business venture." With joy, Mom and Dad clapped their hands. "Oh, how lovely," Mom cried out. "What sort of business endeavor?" With caution, I asked. Tyler waved his hand dismissively in response, saying, "It's complicated. Jason is launching a software platform that links companies with investors. It will completely transform the venture capital industry." Megan went on to say, "We're going to make so much money. Jason anticipates a 300% return in just the first year." 300%. Putting down my fork, I repeated, "That sounds a little suspicious. You two have two young children, you see. Jack recently turned 3 and Emma is just 5. Are you certain that selling your home is the wisest course of action? Perhaps use your funds to invest instead." The room's temperature appeared to drop by 10 degrees. Tyler flashed me the patronizing look I'd known all my life, and Megan snorted loudly. "Riley," he murmured gently, as though he were speaking to a young kid, "I understand your good intentions, but I attended Westmore College to study finance. You attended a community college and worked as an accountant. I believe I have a somewhat better understanding of entrepreneurship than you do." I refrained from speaking. Tyler never brought up the fact that I graduated with honors and had received 2 promotions in 5 years at my business, while he barely graduated from Westmore. Besides, Tyler continued, "Grandpa gave me the bigger house for a reason. He always knew I had a better head for business. This is exactly the kind of opportunity he would have wanted me to seize." I could have told him right then that Grandpa had only given him the bigger house because Mom had practically begged him to. I could have pointed out that Grandpa, who built his modest wealth through careful saving and conservative investments, would have been horrified at the idea of Tyler selling his house to invest in some vague tech venture. I could have mentioned that Jason had already cycled through 3 failed startups in the past 5 years. But why bother? Tyler was an adult. He and Megan had made their decision, and frankly, after a lifetime of playing second fiddle, I wasn't feeling particularly inclined to save him from himself. "You're right," I said instead, taking another sip of water. "It's your decision." Mom beamed at Tyler. "We're so proud of you for taking this leap," she said. "It takes courage to seize an opportunity like this." Dad nodded in agreement. "Your grandfather would be proud, too." For the rest of dinner, Tyler and Megan talked about all the things they planned to do with their newfound wealth. They'd travel the world, buy a vacation home, put the kids in private school. I stayed quiet, nodding and smiling when appropriate. Meanwhile, I mentally went through my renovation plans for my own small house. I'd been systematically updating it room by room, using money I'd saved from my boring accountant job. Last month, I'd finished the kitchen. Next up was the bathroom. 3 months after that fateful dinner, I was in my newly renovated bathroom, enjoying a hot shower under my rainfall shower head, when my phone started buzzing incessantly. I ignored it at first, but after the 5th consecutive call, I reluctantly turned off the water and wrapped myself in a towel. 6 missed calls from Mom. Not a good sign. I called her back immediately, water still dripping onto my bathroom floor. "Riley, thank goodness." Mom answered, her voice tense. "Can you come over? It's about Tyler." An hour later, I pulled into my parents' driveway and immediately noticed something odd: a mountain of luggage and boxes piled on the front porch. Before I could even ring the doorbell, the door swung open and I was nearly knocked over by Emma and Jack, who came barreling into my legs. "Auntie Riley," Emma cried, "we're staying with Grandma and Grandpa now." I looked up to see my mother standing in the doorway, her face drawn and tired. Behind her, Tyler was pacing back and forth, phone pressed to his ear, while Megan sat on the couch, staring blankly at her laptop. "What's going on?" I asked, though I already had a pretty good idea. Mom ushered me inside and closed the door. "Tyler and Megan had to leave their apartment," she whispered. "The rent was just too much." Ah, so they'd blown through the house money already. After they sold the house, Tyler and Megan had promptly bought a flashy red Porsche 911, completely impractical for a family with 2 small children. Then they rented a luxury apartment downtown, and Tyler quit his steady job at the bank to focus on the investment. They dumped about $500,000 into Jason's business venture and spent the remaining $100,000 on the car and a lavish vacation to the Maldives, leaving the kids with Mom and Dad for 3 weeks. Jason said the first quarter is always slow. Tyler said loudly, having finished his call. He forced a smile. "But things are going to pick up any day now." I wandered into the kitchen to get a glass of water. Dad followed me in. "How bad is it?" I asked quietly. Dad sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "They've burned through everything. The apartment was $4,000 a month. The car payment is another $1,500. They couldn't keep up. And the investment." Dad's expression darkened. "Jason keeps saying they're on the verge of a breakthrough, but—" He shook his head. "I've got a bad feeling about it." Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as Tyler scrambled to find work. He eventually took a job at a car dealership, a significant step down from his previous banking position, but at least it was something. Meanwhile, Megan tried to put on a brave face, posting carefully curated photos on social media that made it seem like everything was fine. But everything wasn't fine. My parents' modest retirement home wasn't designed for 6 people. Mom called me one evening, sounding exhausted. "Riley, sweetie, I hate to ask, but—" She hesitated. "We're struggling a bit with groceries. 4 extra mouths to feed, you know." I knew it was coming. "How much do you need, Mom?" "Oh, anything would help," she said quickly. "We're just a bit tight this month." I promised to transfer some money right away, settling on $600, enough to help, but not enough to strain my own budget. When I told her the amount, she thanked me profusely, though I could hear a hint of disappointment in her voice. She'd clearly been hoping for more. The next month, I got another call, and then another. The $600 monthly transfer became a regular thing. I didn't mind helping, but I couldn't help but notice that Tyler and Megan still managed to keep the Porsche despite their financial troubles. Priorities, I guess. One night, I attended my cousin Beth's birthday party. It was a welcome break from the family drama, or so I thought, until my Aunt Patty cornered me by the dessert table. "Riley, dear," she whispered, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "How are you holding up with all this Tyler business?" I shrugged. "I'm just trying to help where I can." Aunt Patty leaned in closer. "Well, you should know that your parents are at their wits' end. They love Tyler, of course, but having them all there, it's taking a toll." She took a sip of her wine. "And between you and me, they've got a plan to fix things." Something in her tone made my stomach clench. "What kind of plan?" "They want to move Tyler and his family into your house," she said bluntly. "Your mom thinks it makes perfect sense since you live alone in a 2-bedroom. I nearly dropped my plate. "What?" "They're saying it would just be for a few months." "But—" Aunt Patty shook her head. "Sheila told me they're hoping you'll eventually just move out. Let Tyler have the place." I stood there frozen as Aunt Patty squeezed my arm sympathetically. "I thought you should know. It didn't seem right, them plotting behind your back." The party continued around me, but I barely noticed. All I could think about was the audacity of it all. They weren't just planning to ask me to take in Tyler's family. They were planning to push me out of my own home. As I drove home that night, my mind was racing. I knew what was coming. The guilt trips, the family pressure, the inevitable. It's just temporary that would somehow become permanent. And once Tyler and his family moved in, I'd be expected to pay the bills, clean up after them, and eventually give up my own space entirely. No, not this time. I wasn't going to let them take advantage of me again. When I got home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at my kitchen table, thinking. By the time the glass was empty, I had a plan. The next morning, I walked into my boss Dave's office without an appointment. He looked up from his computer, surprised. "Riley, everything okay?" "Remember that accounting position at the Pittsburgh branch?" I asked, not bothering with small talk. "Is it still open?" "I want the job." Dave leaned back in his chair, studying me. "That's a senior position, Riley. More responsibility, different environment. It's a big move." "I'm ready for it," I said. "I've been here 5 years. I've consistently exceeded my targets. My performance reviews are excellent. I'm qualified." Dave nodded thoughtfully. "Well, I can't say I want to lose you here, but," he smiled, "you'd be great for the position. Let me make a few calls." He paused. "The position starts in 4 weeks. That enough time for you to get your affairs in order?" "Perfect," I said, already mentally calculating my next steps. As soon as I left Dave's office, I called my friend Jenna, who worked as a realtor. "I need to sell my house," I said without preamble, "as quickly as possible." "Well, your place is in a good neighborhood, and you've done those nice renovations." She thought for a moment. "If we price it aggressively, we could probably get offers within a week. But really, are you sure about this?" "Never been more sure of anything in my life," I said firmly. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Jenna worked her magic, and we had 3 competing offers within 5 days of listing. I accepted the highest one, $285,000, which was $45,000 more than I paid for it 4 years ago. Not bad for a small house. Meanwhile, I researched apartments in Pittsburgh, focusing on areas close to the company. Brand Ranch real estate was cheaper there than in my current city. I found a beautiful 1-bedroom in a modern building with a gym and rooftop terrace for $220,000. I made an offer immediately and started the purchasing process. Through it all, I told no one in my family what I was doing. Mom called twice. Once to thank me for the monthly money transfer, and once to casually ask if I'd be free for dinner next Saturday. "We have some things we want to discuss with you," she said, trying to sound nonchalant. "Sure, Mom," I replied, equally casual. "I'll be there." I arranged for a moving company to pack and transport most of my belongings to a storage facility in Pittsburgh, scheduled for the day before the family dinner. I kept only what would fit in 2 suitcases, enough clothes for a couple of weeks, my laptop, and a few personal items. The day after the movers left, I checked into a modest hostel downtown. It felt strange sleeping in a twin bed with strangers in the room, but it was only temporary. Just 3 more days until I flew to Pittsburgh. Saturday evening arrived, and I drove to my parents' house for the last time. I parked a block away, not wanting my packed car to give anything away. As I walked up the familiar path to the front door, I took a deep breath. This was it, the confrontation I'd been avoiding my whole life. Mom answered the door with a tight smile. "Riley, good. You're here. We're just about to serve dinner." Inside, the atmosphere was strained. Dad sat at the head of the table, looking uncomfortable. Tyler and Megan were there too, both wearing expressions that were attempting to be pleasant, but came across as smug. The kids were nowhere to be seen. We exchanged a few empty phrases. Finally, Mom set down her fork. "Riley, honey, we wanted to talk to you about your house." "What about it?" I asked innocently. "Well," Mom continued, her voice taking on that persuasive tone she'd used my entire life whenever she wanted me to give something up for Tyler's benefit, "your father and I have been thinking. It might make sense for Tyler and his family to stay with you for a little while, just until they get back on their feet." I looked at Tyler, who was studying his plate. Megan was watching me, a hint of challenge in her eyes. "For how long?" I asked, knowing full well what the answer would be. Tyler shrugged. "Not sure yet. Things are starting to look up with the investment, though. Jason says we're due for a big breakthrough any day now." I had to suppress a laugh. 3 months later, and he was still clinging to that fantasy. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. "I mean, my house is pretty small. There's only 2 bedrooms. You could take the smaller bedroom and give them the master," Mom suggested quickly. "Or maybe you could stay with a friend for a bit, just until things settle down." I opened my mouth to argue further, then caught myself. What was the point? In a few days I'd be gone, and this would all be moot. Better to let them think they'd won, for now. I sighed heavily, shoulders slumping in what I hoped looked like defeat. "Fine," I said flatly. "When are they planning to move in?" Mom looked surprised, clearly having expected more resistance. "Well, we were thinking next weekend. Would that work?" "Sure," I said, picking up my food disinterestedly. "I guess I'll start packing up some of my things." Tyler and Megan exchanged triumphant glances. Mom looked relieved. Dad still wouldn't meet my eyes. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. Mom, Dad, Tyler, and Megan started discussing logistics, which furniture would stay, which would go into storage, whether my home office could be converted into a playroom for the kids. I mostly pushed food around my plate, offering one-word responses when directly addressed. After dessert, I stood up. "I should get going. Lots to do if I'm moving out next weekend." As I walked to the door, I heard them continue their conversation, voices dropping to hushed tones, but still audible. "I told you she'd agree," Mom was saying. "Riley's always been reasonable." "Should we help her pack her stuff?" Dad asked. "No need," Megan replied. "Most of it can just stay in the garage. It's not like she has anything valuable." "We'll need to get a new couch," Tyler added. "That old thing she has kills my back." I closed the front door quietly behind me, their voices fading as I walked away. They'd already forgotten I was there. Already planning how to take over my space, erase my presence, replace my things with theirs. But little did they know there would be nothing for them to take over. Back at the hostel, I checked my phone to find a text from Mom. "Thank you for understanding, sweetie. Your brother is so grateful." I didn't reply. Instead, I sent a quick message to Jenk, confirming that everything was on track with the house closing. She replied immediately. "All good. New owners get keys on Thursday." The next morning, I woke up early, checked out of the hostel, and headed to the airport. As the plane took off, carrying me toward my new life in Pittsburgh, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. My new apartment would be ready in 2 days. My new job started in a week. I had about $65,000 left from the house sale after buying the apartment, which I planned to invest. Conservatively, of course, unlike some people I knew. My first week in Pittsburgh passed in a pleasant blur. I settled into my new apartment, a sleek one-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city skyline. The neighborhood was vibrant, full of small cafes and boutiques. My new job came with a corner office and a 15% raise. Everything was going perfectly. Until Thursday evening. Exactly 1 week after I'd left town, I was unpacking the last of my kitchen boxes when my phone exploded with notifications. 27 missed calls in the span of 2 hours, 15 from Mom, 8 from Dad, 4 from Tyler, plus dozens of text messages, each more frantic than the last. I knew exactly what had happened. Today was the day Tyler and his family were supposed to move into my house. I could picture it perfectly. Tyler pulling up with a rented truck full of their belongings, knocking on the door, and finding strangers living there. I poured myself a glass of wine and settled onto my new couch, debating whether to respond or simply block their numbers. Before I could decide, my phone rang again. Mom. Against my better judgment, I answered. Riley Elizabeth Harper. My mother's voice was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. What have you done? Hello to you too, Mom, I said calmly, taking a sip of wine. Don't you dare act innocent. Tyler just went to your house with a moving truck, and there's another family living there. They said they bought it 2 weeks ago. That's correct, I replied. The Andersons. Lovely couple. 2 teenage kids. They got a great deal. There was a stunned silence. You sold your house without telling anyone. How could you do something so underhanded? I nearly choked on my wine. Underhanded? That's rich, coming from the person who was planning to push me out of my own home. Another silence. Then, in a much quieter voice, Where are you, Riley? Pittsburgh, I answered. I got a promotion. Senior accountant at the branch office here. Pittsburgh? Her voice cracked. So you just left without saying goodbye? Without telling anyone? Kind of like how you were planning to kick me out of my own house without asking first. I pointed out. That was different. Mom insisted. We're family. We needed your help. No, Mom. Tyler and Megan needed a bailout for their bad decisions, and instead of holding them accountable, you decided I should be the one to sacrifice. Again. Like always. That's not fair. Isn't it? I fired back. Asterisk, Tyler has always been first in my life, followed by Riley. Tyler purchased the pricey school clothing when we needed new ones. You attended his gatherings when we both had them. You persuaded Grandpa that Tyler deserved the lovely house more, so he received it after Grandpa passed away. And now your response is to take away my house when Tyler makes a huge mess, and he and Megan make the most foolish financial choice imaginable. My house, the one I labored for, which I have been renovating with my own funds, room by room. No, not now. Asterisk. I feared she might have hung up because the line was silent for so long. I don't know who you think you're talking to, young lady, she said in a tone that was colder than I had ever heard her speak. However, even if I no longer regard you as my daughter, I am still your mother. I braced myself for manipulation, guilt trips, and rage. However, this still stung more than I had anticipated. Whispering, I think we both know that's always been the case, Mom, I added. Oh, and the monthly transfers are being canceled. I've been sending Tyler's family $600. That's finished. She fell silent once more. I could almost hear the conflict between her desire for my money and her rage at me. At last she answered, We don't want your money, but her tone was unconvinced. Good, I said, because you no longer receive it. Goodbye, Mom." Before she could reply, I ended the call and blocked her number. For good measure, I then blocked Tyler, Megan, and Dad. It was 6 months later. I flourished in my new role. I gained new acquaintances. I went on a few casual dates. Above all, I was free to live my life as I saw fit, free from the pressures of my family. My phone called one Sunday morning. It was an unknown number with the area code of my hometown. I nearly didn't respond. Curiosity prevailed. "Hello? Riley?" It was Beth, my cousin. "I think it's acceptable that Aunt Patty gave me your number. I figured you need to be aware of what's happening here." I felt a knot in my gut. "What is it?" "Your parents' house is still where Tyler and his family are. They are experiencing significant financial difficulties. It turned out to be a complete hoax. Months ago, Jason stole everyone's money." "Can't say I'm surprised," I said. "Yes, your parents are also having difficulties. Because they are providing for 4 more people, they are behind on their payments. In order to work part-time at the hardware shop, your dad had to leave retirement." I remained silent. Beth blurted out, "I think you should help, but I'm not telling you this." The exact opposite, in fact. Everyone is praising you for being the wise one and leaving when you did. I remained on my balcony for a while after we hung up, taking in the view of the city below. I had chosen myself for the first time in my life, and I would never again settle for second place.